Well, thank you for your company this morning. As a parent, I know that we are always looking for ways and tools to help bring up our children in the best way possible and give them every advantage possible. So joining me now is a mother, life coach and expert to share how connection-centred parenting could help our kids feel more secure. Welcome, Anne Cullen.
Thank you.
This is really interesting, this subject. I think all parents want to connect better with their children. Let me find out a little bit more about you though. How long have you been working with parents in this field?
Nearly 30 years, if you can believe that.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been a passion forever. So I've been doing, really started out working with children and then found that really the way I could make the most impact is to work with their parents. So that's what I'm doing currently.
So you founded Connection-Centred Parenting. So what exactly is that?
Well, really, I realized over all those years that my philosophy was around connection. And, it's how I parent my own kids. That was just the biggest, most important thing. And connection-centered parenting really just exemplifies all of that. So it's really about connecting to your children, but also about connecting to yourself, because you're a mum, you know what it's like, you have your kids, you kind of get lost in the parenting,
you do.
right?
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. So especially mums care so much about their children, so I think it's really important to have that other aspect to it and connect back to ourselves as well.
So you incorporate mindfulness into this, is that right?
Yes, well, it's really important. It's so easy to, our lives are so busy, and especially when you're a mom, no matter how many children you have, you're going in a million different directions, and we're either worried about, what's coming up, or we're really beating ourselves up over something that's happened.
Or we're just buried in the depths of what's happening at this present moment.
Absolutely. So if we can just get ourselves in that moment, it makes a really big difference.
So you mean mindfulness for the parents and for the children, or how does that work?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because what I notice is that we often, when we're seeing that children are behaving in ways that maybe we don't really like, we often focus so much on the child. But what I really encourage us to consider is how much we come to play in that. So really, when I'm talking about the mindfulness side of things, I really am talking about for the parents.
Can you give me an example? So say I've got a child and they're talking back all the time, or this is probably a common one. I think many people will feel familiar with it. So what's happening? So what would my response be? Or?
So the thing is, about 95% of what we do comes from our unconscious thoughts and feelings. So if we're operating in that way and our kid talks back to us, we automatically react. So if we can take a nice deep exhale, rather than trying to take a deep breath, but if we just slowly just release that air, it just gives us a moment and it sends a signal to our bodies to calm down, come back to the moment, and then we can make a more conscious choice, which might actually be a little bit better than that unconscious reaction.
Well, it's not that knee-jerk reaction, so to speak, isn't it?
Right.
So do you give the same advice to all parents, or is it different in different situations?
No, it's really what I advise mostly is for people to come back to their own values and what's important to them. So it was important to me to be home with my children for a few years. So when the days were tough and I was at home and feeling isolated, I reminded myself that I'm doing this because it's important to me. Whereas if you're a busy mom out working and you're feeling guilty, I'm coming back to what's important to you. So it's not going to be the same for everybody.
Because mothers do, and well, I guess fathers too, but mothers do feel guilt. Working parents feel guilt. I know I always have to certain respects, but then do you just have to realise that I find by being a working parent, I think it makes me a better mother. A better mother and more tolerant with my children and a little bit more engaged with them too. Yeah,
well, I think if you're doing what is making you happy, and that's the key, and that's what I was saying before, is we need to come back to focusing on ourselves and what matters to us. Yeah.
So why do you think parents are in need of this type of help? Have we lost the art of communicating with our children?
Unfortunately, we have a phone, so yeah. But even before phones and all of this social media and the real disconnect there, ultimately, we grow up, we raise our children in isolation. We live in these houses with four walls. Generally, we don't have grandma and auntie and everybody there. So we're really quite disconnected from just everybody. So another part of it is really connecting back to your tribe or your village and realizing that, you can't do this alone. So we really need to foster those kinds of connections as well.
And that tribe, I guess, can be your good friends, it can be your family, it can be the school mums, it can be all sorts of different ones. So what results do you want to see for both the children and the parents, or what do you want the next step to be?
Well, I mean, the name kind of says it all. It's all about connection, and we know from what the research tells us that if we can build and foster secure attachments and secure connections for our children in the early days and all through their growing up, it's never too late to start, but we carry that on. We're going to have amazing human beings out in the world.
And it's good to know it's never too late too.
It's never too late. And brains are developing right into the 20s, like childhood is we've got a long time as parents. Yeah.
Really? I'd love to see it. Have you had any amazing results with people that you've worked with?
Yeah, and again, like I say, what I find really interesting is parents often come to me because they're struggling with their children or their babies or their young children. And when we focus back on mom and dad and the adults in the picture, they start to see the results with their children. Yeah, and I often don't even meet the kids.
Wow, that's fascinating.
I love it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. That has been
me.
very enlightening. Now, if you would like to learn more about what Anne's been talking about or anything we've discussed this morning, you can check out Anne's website, IamAnneCullen.com.